Okay, so welcome back, everybody. We're on item 7.1, my board chair report. So there's one item there, the email that came January 14th, the ACSTA memo regarding the Fully Alive resource. Just wondering if trustees read it and if you would be interested in just an update of exactly what that resource is, why there is some interest in it in the media. Anyhow, just a little update on that resource and how it's rolling out. Would trustees be interested in that? It would probably be Claire that gave us that kind of update. Is that correct, Charlie? Okay. So I saw Trustee Tugwood, you would be interested in an overview of the program. Trustee Efron? Yeah. Trustee Sirois? Yeah, okay. So we'll ask Charlie to put that on the action sheet if we can get just an overview of how that program is being implemented, or it's a resource, not a program. It's a resource to for the actual curriculum. So whenever it's convenient for Claire, I guess, and it can be, would trustees prefer it as part of a faith PD? Like next month we actually do Lectio, but we could move Lectio ahead and just have that as have Claire again as a faith PD.
Michelle, what is it called? The name of it? What's the name of it?
It's the Fully Alive resource.
Okay, yeah. I was looking at it last night.
Yeah. So we can have it during our board meeting or as a faith PD. Is there a preference?
It's quite extensive, so it might take its own.
How about we let Claire and Charlie decide that, depending on the time it takes and where it best fits for Claire to be a part of the meeting again. Charlie?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We can tailor that presentation to the board's desires. I mean, I wouldn't expect that you would want, a 2-hour presentation. We probably could summarize something easily, anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes. So I guess if the direction to us is to do it as part of the faith PD, then we could find out when Claire is available and do it on one of the faith PDs. Or if it's in the regular board meeting, maybe it's a 15-minute overview. So I'll turn it back to you to decide.
Okay, should we just invite Claire into a board meeting, and then we have lots of time for questions? Maybe that's better. Then the next board meeting date that works best for her. Maybe just give me a thumbs up, everybody, if that works. Okay. Okay, so during a board meeting, and if February works, that's great, and whatever time is best for her. And then we will continue on with Lectio for our Faith PD next month. Okay, thank you. I am going to do a GRACE update later on in the meeting, so we'll continue on. So we're at the superintendent report 7.2.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was going to speak to Fully Alive a little bit, but I'll leave it off. Okay. It was in the faith leadership section. So I'll skip right to number 4 and let the board know that administration did meet with Alberta Education Field Services Manager Trish Randolph-Beaver as part of that annual review of the division's annual education results report and education plan. Feedback was good from Trish, and she may even actually be tuning into this meeting. She was interested in the conversation trustees would have about the First Nations trustee. If any of you cross paths with Trish, I will let you know that she is moving on to a new chapter in her career after this year. So This will be her last year with STAR and with Alberta Ed as in that role, is my understanding. Moving on to authority, operations, and resources. So Ed and I don't know if he had it in his report, we submitted to the province the projected enrollment for the division. So senior admin, we sat down with all schools, reviewed their projected enrollment, and kind of landed on the numbers that both agreed to, because those were due to the province early this year, very early. And that's in anticipation of an earlier release of the provincial budget. So those numbers have been submitted. Overall, I would say that the division is submitting an enrollment that's more conservative than what we did last spring. It's probably best summarized as an enrollment number closer to what we finished the 18-19 school year on. I think that's the number, yeah. Or sorry, the 19-20 school year, sorry. So that's been submitted. I also wanted to inform trustees that we did the last change in learning method survey of parents, where they could decide whether they wanted to go online or return to in-person learning for February 1st. What I will let you know is in the end, we have 74 students moving online, and we have 41 students moving from online to in-person. So roughly about 30 more students going online than what we have coming back to in-person. The online school continues to be a very large school. The number that I have is 625 students that will be finishing the year, because this is the last entry point. February 1st is the last entry point for the year. So whatever parents have selected, that's where they're going to be through to June 30th. So the 625 students will be finishing the year online. And then lastly, what I'll mention is that the books have arrived for the trustee retreat. So I'll remind trustees that you had agreed to a book study as part of your retreat experience. So the retreat again is in May. So the books have come in, and at some point, I think you'll maybe have to have some discussion about when you want us to give you the books to allow you enough time to, read them before the retreat. But that's the last thing that I wanted to mention. Are there any questions about any areas in the report?
I do have a couple of questions here, Charlie. So I think my first one is about the Drayton Valley interview. Just wondering what the media interview, just wondering what that was about. And then the outreach formula, is this something new, or again, just wondering about outreach and how their funding is going, or, that sort of stuff. And then the third one is, how many elders do we have spending time in our schools? Curious about that.
Okay. So I'll start with the Drayton Valley interview. The media was looking for information about what after Christmas would look like. So I explained to the reporter that students would be at home learning for a week, and then they would return on January 11th. It was a short interview. She was just kind of making sure that parents in the community had a good understanding of what reentry would look like after the Christmas break. The second question, remind me what that was again? It was
the outreach formula.
The outreach formula, thank you. So what's been interesting this year, as you're aware, is all the high school students in the division who have chosen to have their education online, those have been through both the outreach and Elk Island Catholic. So it's an atypical year. It's not typically what we experience with the outreach. But something that's never been put in place at the division is some sort of a formula on how to staff the outreach. So that's a process that we are going through, and we're working with the outreach teachers, the administration of the outreach, Principal Dunlop, to kind of come to some understanding of what that looks like. I'll remind trustees that the outreach is no longer funded on CEUs as it had been in the past. The division gets a flat $150,000. for funding. So I know you had made a comment about that, Madam Chair. It's a straight $150,000 to the division, then we decide how we're going to staff it after that, et cetera. But it is a flat amount. Regarding the amount of elders in the school, we don't necessarily track that by elders. I will say though that it has been a priority of the Director of Curriculum Staff Development, Chris Zarsky, to bring more elders into our schools and try to build a relationship with elders. Obviously, the First Nations that we're most connected to are in Musqueam.
Mhm.
Lori, I don't know if you have anything you want to add to the discussion about elders, but we don't specifically track who and how often they're coming into the school.
Well, yes, no, we don't track that. I guess in discussion with Chris Zarsky, she's been having, because of COVID, she's been having a few issues in finding elders that will participate online and do things online. So that's been a bit of a challenge, but she does have excellent connections and is continuing to work with the surrounding communities and with Musqueam as well. Trish Randolph Beaver, she had also recommended someone that could work with us online, and that was just last week. So we're still looking into that.
Okay, I was just wondering if we could use that information at all with our, our First Nations trustee position, like if that information would be helpful, just in determining that that position or the needs of our schools. So, but would we have elders coming into every school? Like,
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily, yeah.
No, we do have First Nation, Métis, or Inuit people going into our schools, but they're not always elders.
Yeah.
Maybe consultants, and there's, as you know, a difference in the
term. Knowledge keepers. Yeah. Okay. And just going back to outreach. Oh, sorry, Trustee Efron, go ahead. Oh, we can't hear you, Trustee Efron. Yeah, we still can't hear you. Maybe unplug your earphones. You can put it in the chat maybe until you get your.
Okay.
Oh, there, I can hear you now. Thank you.
All right, thank you. No, sorry about that. On number 7 there, Mr. Bouchard, in the middle part, you have met with managers of supporting newcomer families with settlement workers in schools. Do you want to just provide a little bit of context around that work for me, please?
So I'll ask Lori to maybe speak to that. That's one of the items that are submitted on her behalf.
Oh, okay.
So Chris Pirro attended this meeting. The settlement workers in schools essentially is supported federally. It's a program that is free to our schools. And essentially they will help connect families with local resources. They will help just support those students, newcomers to Canada. They will help them just integrate into the community. It's a free resource, and it just has started with Star Catholic just in this last 2 weeks. They met at the beginning of January. Yeah, so it's very new.
Very new. Okay. Mm-hmm. So are they from the Rotary New Immigrants Place, or this is just a fairly
new? It's called Swiss, and they're the Action for Healthy Communities is the
lead.
Is the organization.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, that was very new to me. I was like, okay, thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments? Trustee Serwa? You are muted, Trustee Serwa.
Yes, sorry. Charlie, you mentioned that February 1st, they had until to indicate if they wanted to do the home learning or in school. What happens if March somebody changes their mind and they really want to come back to school?
So February 1st is the start of the third quarter or the new semester. And we were very clear with parents. They had to make their decision by January 16th. If in March they choose that they want to come back, unless there's an extenuating circumstance, that will not be allowed.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so just going back to funding of outreach. So the remainder, the $50,000 one-time grant, how else is it funded?
So as a senior administration and working with the school projected enrollment, we staff it out of division pooled funds.
Yeah.
150,000 supplements it, but it does not pay for the entirety of that program. So that program does have a cost to the division.
Mm-hmm. So will enrollment help?
No.
No, it won't. No.
It's a flat amount.
Yeah.
The only way that enrollment would help is, if enrollment resulted in an increased need for more staff, then we would pool more money for that program. But essentially, it's a division program.
Right. Okay, thank you. Okay, 7.3, Secretary Treasurer Report. I'll hand this over to Ed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess just a few highlights in terms of, as the superintendent has mentioned, is beginning the work over to December and into the first week of January is related to that enrollment projection to the province. Just as an add-on for trustees' information, informally, Alberta Education staff have indicated that that's probably going to be the norm with this allocation model, and the weighted moving average is that they will be looking for enrollment projections sort of for early January in anticipation of giving preliminary funding numbers or allocations out by the end of February. So I've tried to prepare administrators that their December might be busier than they think in looking forward, and to make sure their crystal balls are polished up well for that. With regards to some of the other things going on, again, I've got ongoing activities with regards to elections. The nomination, there is a modified, or what I'd call a small package for candidates that is available now at central office. If somebody wishes to submit their candidacy or nomination at this point in time, I haven't received any, but we needed to be prepared with some documentation as well as the nomination form for January 1st. So that is now available and ongoing in terms of coordinating with other municipalities. The last two items relating to the financial aspects is we've submitted some statements of final costs that I want to advise the board about. The one with regard to CMR program, again, this was the program that was announced in late spring that we had a very short turnaround time in submitting projects for. There was about $1.7 million in projects that were approved for funding. Our final costs on those projects came in at just over $1.6 million. The province had advanced most of the funding on that 1.7, so our final claim is coming in at about 437,000. The other submission is with regards to the modular move at Notre Dame. We had a total cost of that of 358,000. The province wasn't going to support the full cost because they only supported the cost of one modular, and we were moving two because it made no sense to move just one modular and then at some point in the future move a second one. So we moved both, but we've requested of our total cost of 358,000. The request for support is for 248,000. It's been a little unusual, just to be fair, because we never received a letter approving how much funding we were getting. So this is where we've submitted these costs and we were waiting for a response back from the province in terms of the costs that we're asking to be supported. Again, it's not 100% because we're recognizing some of those costs were unsupported with that second modular. And then the last thing, it was interesting because as we were discussing the audited financial statements and the first quarter financials and where we were sitting for tax proceeds, we very shortly after those discussions, our billing came through from the province for the property tax portion, and financial services identified a substantial error by the province to the tune that we would have paid $3 million more than we would have received from municipalities. And so they worked back and forth through the province under very tight timelines to make sure that that discrepancy was resolved. And so the concern that that $3 million represented was corrected. It was an error from the province in terms of what we were receiving in property tax funding as opposed to what they want to collect back from us. And so I'm happy to report that that was all resolved appropriately. But for a couple of weeks, heading into the Christmas period, there was a great deal of work going into the background, trying to make sure that if something happened and we needed to cover it, what would we need to be able to do and how quickly could we pull resources together to have that done at a time when we're generally pretty slow or at half staff and trying to figure out things. So like I said, it was resolved all good for the jurisdiction and a crisis averted. But it was just interesting on the timing of our conversations with the board about property tax.
Oh my goodness, thank you very much. And thank you to the Financial Services Department because for getting on that right away, thank goodness. And the extra time and effort that was put into that. Thank you very much. Yeah. Unfortunate surprise to have to deal with.
Very much so.
yeah, for sure. Did anyone have any questions for Ed?
No, I was just going to say, great job, Ed, especially on the discrepancy issue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Trustee Efron?
Yeah, my question is, Ed, thank you for everything again, like everyone said. The nomination notices, are we going to have like a blitz and into our social media sites as well as to the churches, now that you said the packages are ready?
Well, we've got an abridged package that's ready just if somebody asks that we can respond to that appropriately. I've been working with Caitlin about setting up, and we were going to report back to the board in February in terms of a communication plan and rollout. And we've talked about what we have for website process and presence, as well as our social media presence as well. So we'll be happy to present that next go around.
Thank you. No, yeah, I remember that conversation, but now that you said the bridge is ready, I'm excited. Okay, thank you.
If you're excited now, wait until September.
Yes, and I was just going to make a comment about enrollment numbers. So you think that January is going to be the regular timing for submission of those numbers?
I think
projections, I guess.
I think Alberta Education is trying to have preliminary allocations out by the end of February. And in order to do that, we have to have submissions done by early January.
Yeah, that's pretty hard for everybody, for sure.
I won't say this, but amongst my colleagues, I was circulating a picture of a knife thrower and a blindfolded person being the target, saying this was our new consultant on enrollment.
Yeah.
We knew at least then
exactly.
our cuts were immediate.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much to admin for getting that together and just trying to manage a lot of unknowns, for sure. I just had one question about the property tax exemption for outreach. Was that resolved?
Yes. So
it looks like it was. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So starting with 2021, that portion of that facility is exempt for property taxes, and so those costs will be eliminated for our operations there.
Yeah, okay, good. Okay, well, I hope all those final costs come in for CMR and for modular. I think I did have one more. Oh, École Notre Dame. So that one day they had a water main break. So was that an insurance claim, or was that a big cost that we incurred for that?
At this point, the cost that I'm aware of off the top of my head, because I haven't revisited it with the director of facilities, was somewhere in the neighborhood of around $19,000. At this point, I'm going to talk to the insurers. We have not put in an insurance claim. They were made aware of it. The break was outside of the building, so there wasn't any kind of interior damage to the building. It was all contained on the exterior. So I'm not anticipating that we've got huge losses. So I think what we'll do and moving forward, we'll kind of evaluate that and then talk with our brokers and then the insurance company and saying, if we absorb some of these smaller things rather than putting an insurance claim, how can we get the benefit of that with our insurance premiums? So at this point, it's under 20,000. I've talked with our facilities department about maybe setting aside 20 or 30,000 in IMR funding to absorb these kind of smaller issues rather than incurring a cost to our insurers that they start to look at us and say, you're not a great risk.
Our own reciprocal.
It's basically yes.
Basically.
Yeah. We've got a very low premium at $5,000 for a property at this point compared to what we've had under ASB, but I don't want to take advantage of that too easily because we pay for it in the end.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for managing that.
That's the best.
Any
mafia
other?
Scheme.
Yeah.
That's the best.
Go ahead,
mafia
Trustee
scheme
Efron.
you have. I said that's the best mafia scheme you have. You take it out and they'll come back and take more from you.
Yeah.
Well, especially in our first year.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions for Ed? Okay. Thank you very much. So we will move on to 7.4 board budget assumptions, and finance or Ed is welcome to lead this.
I'll defer to Donna, please.
Okay, last year the board discussed the ability to identify items for the budget consideration. The process outlined was that we were going to collect items from the trustees and bring it to the finance board. This year has been very different than what we had decided on when we talked about this last year. So I will turn it over to Ed, but as far as I can see right now, the library at Drayton Valley is one of the main things that would be in this budget assumption. I don't know if any other trustees have anything else that they want to add, but there's a lot of things that have to be considered with this, which includes our lower enrollment, which is going to affect our budget and the amount coming in and the weighted moving average and so many different things. So Ed, you can speak to this probably better.
Well, and this item is intended to open it up for discussion if there's trustees feel that there's an item that needs to be considered in the budget that maybe isn't brought forward by administration. The couple of other things that I might add to Donna's comments is that also looking at the assurance model, when trustees bring items forward, I think we want to be respectful of what has been our stakeholder consultation process to back up those items in the budget. I think we're fairly confident that, if we're doing a staffing assignment, stakeholders support that. It's part of our normal business. But for the board, I think in terms of transparency, if you're making a recommendation or a change that impacts budget, you want to be solid in terms of your stakeholder support of those items moving forward if it's beyond our kind of traditional operations or previous operations. And that expands to what we've seen in requirements with fees, that there's a consultation done before fees are altered or changed year on year. So I think that's part of, also something that trustees need to be aware of is if you're bringing items forward, also how do you see that consultation about those items happening as well.
Right, there has to be some rationale, and the consultation piece is a big piece too. Trustee Efron, did you have a comment?
Yeah, and as well as if that is fitting with our mission, vision, and value statements. So things have to align when we make a request. So then our stakeholders know that this is the goal and everything is in a mission. Okay.
Right, good point. Okay, so it appears there's nothing, no comments around this except for the what we discussed at finance in regards to Holy Trinity. Could be acquiring that space there, could be a new piece of our budget.
But we don't know at this point how much that would be or anything like that. We hear from the government. So.
Yeah, we haven't been able to flesh out what all our options might be to present to the board at this point.
Okay, thank you very much, Ed and Trustee Tugwood. So 7.5, community consultation. So at our last board meeting, we did ask Charlie to come back with a recommendation on what a community consultation could look like, being that we'll be in the virtual world for a while. So anyhow, I'll hand this over to you, Charlie.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll just share my screen here. And as the chair has indicated, this is a proposal. So let me first by just outlining a bit of the background. So typically our community consultation, the big one that you're familiar with, is in year 2 and 4. So this is year 2. So because we're not looking in these middle years at new goals, the consultation should be primarily focused on our strategies and getting feedback on our current strategies. So you'll see there, that's what I've highlighted in black or bolded. So it's saying to our stakeholders, here are the strategies we are implementing to address provincial and board local goals. What feedback can you provide related to these strategies? So that will be the guiding question in the consultation. So what I'm proposing is that it would be a virtual meeting, and then attendees could be assigned to breakout rooms for smaller discussions that would be inclusive of the various stakeholder groups. In looking at the calendar and the timeline of things, I'm proposing that it would be on February 23rd, 24th, or 25th. So I'm going to ask trustees to kind of give that some thought, and maybe we can have some discussion around that. But the timeline or the time of the consultation would be from 3:45 to 5:45. So as discussed at the last meeting, a 2-hour consultation we said would be enough because it is Zoom and we don't want to go on too long. So that would be kind of the date and proposed time for it. Now, these are the typical attendees, as I've highlighted here. So in the past, we've had 6 trustees, 6 parish representatives, 11 administrators, 11 school council members, 12 teachers, and then we've had high school students, 1 student per grade from each of the 3 high schools for a total of 9. So that would mean then that there would be 55 participants, and that would not include any facilitators such as senior admin or directors in the past who've been facilitators, but 55 participants. Next, what I'll highlight is when I looked at the AERR, there were 2 areas that I thought might be best to get feedback on. Domain 2, which is grow and affirm Catholic identity, and Domain 3, student growth and achievement. More specifically, the board local goal, which is a focus on mental health and well-being. So these 2 areas, I believe that there is room for growth and improvement as a division, as indicated in our results, and I'll go over those here right now. So regarding growing and affirming Catholic identity, I don't know if that's very readable for you. I'll try to go a little larger here. There we go. So everything highlighted in yellow, can you see that on your end? Just a thumbs up. Okay, so the highlighted yellow responses to our survey would be things that we would seek feedback on. So teachers, help me understand how faith can guide the way I live my life. We could have some discussion on the 78%. Again, we're talking about the strategies that we're using to address these results and getting feedback on, what do you think, basically. So those are the areas of faith. I also want to point out, and I'll talk about it later on, like we would also highlight some of the good work, but it wouldn't be the focus of the consultation. So this would be the areas of faith, kind of three areas that we would get feedback on. And then next, the focus on mental health and well-being. Again, the areas of yellow would be things that we could, ask our stakeholders to give us some feedback on. So, social emotional supports, the results around students having headaches, stomach aches, sleeping at night. We could be asking our students, for feedback, why do you think this is from a student's point of view? So those would be the two primary areas for feedback. Remember, it's a 2-hour window, so narrowing it down to 2 areas, I think would be good. So what I have here is kind of a proposed schedule and an agenda for that consultation. So 3:45 to 3:50, we would welcome, and that would be the board chair would bring some greetings, lead us in prayer. From 3:50 to 4 o'clock, we would kind of overview the consultation, the purpose, what the AERR is, what an education plan is. Remember, this feedback is to guide our education plan, which is due in May. Again, we're looking, as I put in bold there, for feedback to help shape the strategies for the 21-22 plan. So we would also review the provincial measures, and we would highlight the accountability pillar report card. So we're doing very well as a division, so it's important to highlight that. Then from 4 to 4:20, we would review the Catholic identity domain, and we would talk about our current strategies. Then we would go into breakout rooms. So the first breakout room would go from 4:20 to 4:50. So there's a half an hour there just about faith, where people could give us feedback on those areas that I've identified above. From 4:50 to 5:10, we would do the same thing, but for domain 3, the area of mental health. So we would then break out into new rooms, new participants, and get their feedback. That's the half hour from 5:10 to 5:40 is the actual discussion part. And then 5:40 to 5:45, the vice chair could close with some comments and a thank you to the participants. So that's a proposal of what a virtual community consultation could look like, spanning 2 hours. So I'd be happy to entertain questions on any of that.
Trustee Sirwa?
I was just going to say, Charlie, I think this sounds really good.
Thank you.
And I think the timeline is really good too. The times, start and end.
Thank you.
Trustee Tugwood or Trustee Efron?
I believe we are in this virtual world. So, and again, like the 2-hour window, that is very script and concise, that people are not bored, and we may end up achieving what. And again, it taking that tool into consideration as to having so many that we couldn't focus on, but these two guide a lot of our discussions. And then again, this is different from previous years, so I'm excited about that as well.
Okay, Trustee Tugwood?
I think it's excellent idea. I just wonder about 30 minutes for the faith part and only 20 minutes for the mental health. Seems to me this year we might need it reversed. The mental health part is really. Did I read that right?
So both sections have a 20-minute introduction and a review of the current strategies, and then half an hour for discussion.
Oh, both have half an hour? Okay, I thought the other one was only 20 minutes, sorry.
20 minutes to review the mental health data and current strategies, and then 5:10 to 5:40 to discuss. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, sorry, I read that wrong. But yeah, I think I like the layout. I like everything about it. It's good. Hopefully we
So-
get 55 people.
Mhm.
Yeah, so Charlie, I just have a comment. So when we are looking at our results, our First Nation, Métis, and Inuit results, like, would we not address them in this as well?
So I chose not to put that in the proposal, Madam Chair, for two reasons. First off, the data in our surveys, like our own local data measures, are actually quite positive in that respect. So there were no glaring issues. Now, when you look at the achievement data, that is an area of concern. However, it's 2 years old.
Correct, yeah.
I chose
Yeah.
not to focus any of the consultation on data that's actually outdated, I guess. so to
Yeah,
speak.
it's too old. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Just in the event that we're asked about it, we should know, we should be able to say this is why, right? If we're not addressing the other pieces.
Mhm.
Okay, so it sounds like there's a lot of support for this. What about the dates? Is there a preference for a date for trustees?
I'm sure the 24th, 25th will be much better for me. The 23rd is school counseling with Aspen, so.
I'm actually better for the 25th because I have something on the night of the 24th.
Okay, trustee Sirwa?
Sorry, I was going to say the 25th also.
Okay, so it sounds like the 25th is a good date.
25th it is.
Okay. So this will be after our next board meeting. So it'll be good to kind of prep a little bit beforehand. Do you need anything else from us, Charlie?
No, I think that gives me enough direction for now, and I'll get to work on that.
Yeah, okay, that's excellent. Thank you very much. I think we'll all feel really good about connecting with some of our stakeholders, even though it's a small way this year, but we're still going to have that connection and gather in some of our family. So, okay, great. Thank you very much, Charlie. Okay, 7.7. This is our First Nation trustee discussion. So Charlie did send out some background on that, and we need to discuss our next steps. So I don't know if everybody can pull up that background, just to have a look at it again.
What was the date, Michelle, on that one?
It was sent out.
On that email,
Yeah.
It came from Charlie, and
Mm,
oh boy, hold on here.
where is it? It was the 9th of December.
was it that far back?
That's where I found it.
Oh,
I sent that just, I think it was on the first week in January.
Yeah, January 4th. You want me to
yeah,
send it
that's what
back to
I
you?
thought too.
I must be looking at an older one then.
Liz, do you want me to send it back to you?
No, I have it. And Donna, that was the right date.
Then it was sent again on the 3rd of January. I don't know if it's the same one. Yeah, it looks like
Monday,
the
January 4th.
same one.
I shared some initial documentation at the
Yeah.
committee level,
Yeah.
which I think is what you're referring to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it is January 4th. So, you know what, why don't we just take like 2 minutes and just have a quick read of the document again. Okay, so if everybody's had a moment, so are there any first thoughts?
My first thought looking it over is I really like the Wolf Creek idea of the Wisdom and Guidance Committee. That's where definitely I'm leaning towards. And it seems to really work for them. And the fact that they have a trustee rotate so that everybody gets a chance, I like that idea too.
Yeah, those are some good points there. Trustee Sirwa?
Yes, I agree with Donna, and that's exactly what I was going to say. And we do have a small percentage of FLMI students in our division.
Trustee Efron?
A hybrid of that model will be like, I like the with Tasquin, the Masquatchie Education Council, right? Having, again, trustees and some elders, and if you look at the membership there, which really will suffice for what we are looking at, because we have a concentration in Wetaskiwin, Ponoka, and then a little bit around the Drayton Valley area, right? So again, those are the communities that we have to be mindful and aware of. So that again, it's my thought as to if that will work for us. But again, just a reminder that trustees, this initiative is not localized, that we do a lot as a division on its own in our journey in understanding our people of First Nation, Métis, and Inuit. So just be mindful of that. We're doing all of this to encompass to make sure that whatever you are in our division, you have some understanding as to the makeup of the division. So just a reminder. Okay.
Okay, so just our next steps. Would our next steps be to reach out to Masquatchies and just have a discussion with them that we're researching what the best would be for our First Nations, Métis, and Inuit students, and that representation in that position? Either it's, I mean, we can't decide for them, right? Like, we need a conversation with who we have an agreement with to try to understand what they see would benefit their students the best.
In that regard, I will probably ask the question of Charlie, have you had any conversations with principals at Wetaskiwin and Ponoka and Drayton Valley?
Conversations about?
With regard to how do they see a representation supporting some of the bulk of the work that they do? Because these are the concentrated areas that we have.
Right, I wouldn't have thought that would have been appropriate to do that outside of the board.
Outside of the board.
Discussion. To the chair's point, I think that is a strategy. You could consult the community and remember there's 4 First Nations there. Mm-hmm. So you either have to approach the authority as a whole or each of the 4 nations. With that said, if you're going to ask them how they think they're best represented, you have to be prepared for whatever they say.
Yeah.
So is the board prepared to accept any and all options? Because if the board is open to any and all options, that's great. But if you are not in favor of a trustee, for example, and then they propose that, and then you say, sorry, we're not interested, that's a real hurtful approach. And it would probably not do anything to build the relationship with that community.
Yeah, I think that that the option or the conversation would be around, we're researching all the options, that would be best. And we like what we see some of the other divisions doing too, just in what you've brought forward. So Trustee Afan?
So Madam Chair, probably before your time, we've had similar discussions and created some very good relationship. I remember like Brian Wildcat, when he was, before they became MEX, we've had some good relationship, especially with Samson and Emenskin. Not much with Louisville, who is a bit further, as well as Montana. Okay. In some of that relationship building and all of that, I believe, went well. So if we are thinking to reach out back, we can do that. But I know what happened with Wetaskiwin probably a couple of years ago, when they moved their model and sent a letter, they had just wanted, because they have a rep on there. I don't know how that rep got on there, but there was some community back and forth and grievances, and there was some whole issue around it. So then they decided, okay, now let's just send letter to the nation, have them send somebody on there. And that's what they did to make sure that it's a calmer environment for them, right? So that's why we went to that model. But when I'm looking at everything that they've done, ours will be well served again, like Charlie is saying. If we do ask, are we going to say this is a model we are looking at using? Will that support your need?
Oh, pick the model. Yeah.
Right. Pick a model.
Yeah, that would be a good way to look at it too.
To look at it.
So the Wolf Creek model is very, I mean, it could be like the foundation building, to a position later on, if it ever came to that. But that Wolf Creek model is very attractive, because all trustees rotate through a more cultural experience. So so I guess what we need to do, we need to decide on next steps. So it seems like we're in favor of reaching out to Maskwacis to start a conversation. Do I hear that from trustees? That we're starting to research this position, what it means for the students. And then is there a model that we want to pick to start the conversation?
I just have one thing. I've noticed the Wolf Creek model has monthly meetings where the Maskwacis Educational Calendar meets 4 times a year, 4 meetings per year.
Right.
So perhaps monthly meetings are not necessary. Maybe the 4 meetings a year. Maskwacis obviously has more Native population. Maybe that is a better way to go.
Well, those, they can both, it's the information that we have, and we can just share it and talk about it, I guess, right? Okay. So is that more the model that we're looking at?
I would say so. If we're going to look at that model, because that model we already have, because MEX is made up of all 4. So they may already have representation from all 4, right? And then we join in to understand it, and then probably create our own wisdom and guidance committee, which we can again rely on Chris and the rest and some of the few experts, and I could join into that and tap 1 or 2 other people that, when again we had a wisdom and guidance committee as part of that entity when we are meeting with MEX 4 times a year, right? the end goal, and I'll be honest with you, MEX has made it clear their goal is to build a very formidable school system on reserve,
Mhm.
right? So they will wish all their students to remain
To stay there. Yeah.
there to be with
Yeah.
them, right? So when we approach it that way, then we are supporting, especially some of their need. And that was again,
Yeah.
like I said, we were discussing this long ago when we started having PDs with some of their teachers before MEX came into again to support, to provide, and then mentor a lot of the work that is being done, because we know we have student transient back and forth. So that was a model that we at STAR started maybe 7 years ago when we started having those meetings with them to support teacher growth for them.
Right.
If we approach it that way, because now the IMX, they're building up, how do we support that journey for them? Right.
Okay.
While we also
So would it be reasonable to reach out, ask administration to reach out for an initial meeting? How do we want to do that? Or send a letter. Maybe it's a letter, a letter, kind of a letter, just opening up the door, saying we're looking at our some of the different models of supporting First Nations, Métis, and Inuit students at the trustee level, and we're starting with an invitation to open up this discussion. Because we have an educational agreement, and reference the, the Education Act. We're following up with it. I think a letter would be the first.
Mr. Bouchard, do you still have connection with Brian and Kevin now that they are all MEX?
Yes.
Do you still? Okay, so probably like Madam Chair is proposing, if you can reach out to them, and then we can have some initial discussion. I know Brian has been around for a while, and he'll be a very good resource to guide us to say, you know what, if we do this, that will suffice and support the work we are all doing, probably. That's just my thought.
I could definitely reach out to Brian on who to contact, but I don't think he's kind of like the superintendent.
Yeah, oh yeah.
For them. So he doesn't speak for the chiefs. And I think we have to be careful about that. He might say, when Wetaskiwin wrote their letter, they addressed it to all the four chiefs. And I think that's how we should probably proceed as well. With that, I guess I would ask the board, to give some consideration to timing. They are in the midst of a serious COVID outbreak.
Yeah.
On reserve. So do you want to fire the letter right now, or do you want to, give it a couple of weeks or even a month before we send that, kind of let the waters calm?
Mm-hmm.
I would ask maybe, for some discussion on that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah.
Can't we have some initial, like you said, probably a Zoom half hour, 45 with Brian, and just tapping into their knowledge, being the education gurus around that area. That's all. But like you said, we are not asking them to nominate somebody. We're just tapping into their knowledge because they are the educationists on that field, right? Brian has been there for the past 20 years. I have known him. Kevin has managed Samson Education for the past 30 years, right? So they know that very well, these two. And these are the big bands there, right? So it's just gaining some understanding from them or direction. And then when we are approaching the chiefs, again, we have something concise that we are putting on the table to say, would this fit the model we are looking at, and would you support it?
And I agree, we do need to wait until things have calmed down on the reserves right now with all the COVID.
So I'm not clear about what the suggestion is. It's we're asking administration to contact Brian Wildcat.
Yeah, and Kevin.
To start.
Exactly.
And Kevin, Sorry, I'm not sure of his title.
I think he's the one right
Oh,
behind Brian. Yeah, he's deputy to Brian.
Oh,
So
okay.
he used to manage Samson Education until they went together, and then Brian
Yeah.
took over, and then Kevin is. Right
Okay, so we're
after him.
asking administration to contact Brian and give us an indication about who we should contact first, who our
No,
contact people
it's
would
just-
be.
No, it's just have some discussion and then seek his guidance, right? And then when we are
Okay.
approaching the chiefs and the foreign nation, then we have at least some earmarks that we've gained from Brian, because they are the educationists on that field, and they've been there and know that area very well in terms of. And again, like I said, the bottom line is MEX would like to be a very worthy program and school, right? So definitely they will be happy if we ask for anything to support them as well as they support us.
Okay, does that make sense to you, Charlie?
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, it doesn't.
Okay,
Doesn't?
I'm not sure what I'm talking to Brian about. I mean,
about how to approach the best
How
way
to approach the chiefs and
approach.
council.
Yeah.
That's all right. And he's like I said, he's managed those schools for long, right? But what we are looking for is the support. And he will say, okay, this is what I believe. If you look at it this way or approach it that way, or this is just my advice, if we can. And that's it. Because we already have some good relationship with Brian and Kevin before all of this came back. Okay, so
And
let's
then
file
would
the
there-
letter.
and
Wait for
then
a month
would-
and file the letter.
And then that's when a letter would go out?
Yes, and then we follow up with the letter, right? Though that this is just buying us the time as a month from now, and then follow up with the letter.
Okay, is that any clearer, Charlie? We're just looking for advice from Brian on how to approach the bands or the chiefs.
if that's what the trustees want me to do,
Are you saying to make a phone call first to just get some advice from Brian? Is that what you mean? Or
That could be done.
then write a letter? It sounds like
The
you
letter
have,
will be going to the chiefs and council. And like Charlie said, right, chief and council is different. We're talking about education, right? Brian does or has been around the education authority in Masquatchie for long. So he will have some good insights and advice and guidance. So that's all. And we have some good relationship with Brian and Kevin from when we've been meeting and having some education discussions, right? Then that guides some of the letter that we're sending out to chiefs and council, because we'll be dealing with 4 chiefs, right?
Yeah.
Both Montana, Louisville, Sampson, and Emmenskin, right? Brian knows that area very well, okay? It's just a guidance to us. That's all it is. He's that
Okay.
speak for the chiefs. And then
Is
when
that
we're
more
sending
helpful, Charlie?
so just, I'm to reach out to Brian to get some, to get some advice on how best to approach the chiefs, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, and then what? Bring that to the next meeting?
You and me,
I think we're in agreement that we want to send a letter eventually, depending on the guidance that we get. Just indicating that we're starting this process to research, what the options are for representation on our board. So are trustees in favor of that? Like if Charlie does get the guidance from Brian, and then we do have a bit of an outline of a letter to start to reach out to the chiefs and just start the conversation of what this position might mean.
I think that we need to kind of decide which way we're going, because we don't want to ask them and they maybe want something that we can't give. That would be my concern. If we want to go with this wisdom and guidance committee, we should say that we're looking at forming a wellness and guidance committee that would possibly meet 4 times a year or something like that to show that this is kind of the way we are looking, not that we're open to a trustee right now.
Okay. So Madam Chair, Beza, I think we're taking too much time on this. Let's use the wisdom and guidance model. Let's send a letter to all 4 chiefs. If they can send us a representation on that, and then we'll flash it out from there. And it's going to take a month from now, because yes, Charlie is right. There's a severe outbreak on there. So let's use that model as a starting point.
I would be in agreement using that model as a starting point.
Okay. Trustee Sirwa?
Yes, I agree. Are we getting this in motion so that the person would start the new year in September?
Well, there's still a lot to details to figure out. Like, this is just the beginning of the conversation, is just trying to research, you know, what we think that we can do in this position. So anyhow, so first of all, we have Charlie reaching out to Brian, just giving us some advice on guidance about contacting the chiefs, and then a potential draft letter just stating that we are researching this position and we are interested in a model that is more similar to what Wolf Creek does, and then see where it goes from there.
So Madam Chair, I get mixed messages when I hear for this position. I've heard trustees.
Yeah. No, I'm just talking about, it's a position that we're looking at.
Representation.
Yeah. Representation, yeah.
Representation.
Yeah.
But
It's not a position.
okay.
Yeah.
So Charlie, is it clear now, Asmad?
I'm not sure that you guys are on the same page. I guess I'll just be honest.
Maybe we're not. I see.
Well, maybe we start with just getting feedback from Brian, and then we'll go from there. And maybe his feedback or guidance will be helpful on how to approach the bounds.
So bring it back to the next meeting, the next board meeting in February.
Yeah, we have time. We have lots of time. There's no rush, and because of the situation on Musquatchies with COVID, I mean, everybody is in a different slowdown, right?
Yep, I agree.
Okay. Are we good with that, Charlie?
I think so.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, we're going to go back
Charlie,
to
politicians. We like to muddy the water and then come out of it clean.
yeah. Okay, 7.6, we're going to go back. Sorry, I skipped over that one. Star recognition celebration, Charlie.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So it's getting close to the time of year where Kim would start to send out invitations to our annual staff recognition event, which is scheduled for June 11th. Now, when we send out the invitation to our long service and award recipients, we typically notify them, they can pick their gift, etc. And that usually goes out in early March, if I'm correct in that. So I'm wondering if the board wants to have some discussion about, do we want to make a call on the event being in person, canceled, or virtual? Those are kind of the 3 options that I would see, because the rollout of vaccines, I don't see that we're going to be able to have a live gathering. So what gets confusing is if Kim sends out messaging and then we have to cancel something. We could do that, but we do have a venue booked that we need to make a call on at some point. So I'm interested in the trustees' feedback on kind of where you think we should move as an administration with this long service awards night.
Do we have a number of people that, because we have to include last year as well, right?
Yeah, we typically, in this, we were going to recognize last year's retirees. But we would be looking at about 150 to 200 people, I would think.
Okay, I'll just open up the discussion. Any thoughts? Trustee Tugwood?
Well, I agree with the way the vaccines are not rolling out. Then I think that we won't be able to have it in person. And it seems to me 200 people virtually, that's huge. So I don't know. Unless you broke it down into groups or something, but maybe that's doable, 200. I don't know.
Yeah. If we have a paid Zoom program, we should be able to host 200. And then remember as well, not everybody will attend. I'd rather see us plan and host a virtual event. We've canceled one already. But again, it's a celebration that sometimes there's a means to do it virtually. Yeah, let's try to do it this year at least, because there's an end site. So if we can prep ourselves with a virtual event this year, that would be very much appreciated, and then see what happens next year, please.
Trustee Sirwa? You are muted, Trustee Sirwa.
I would like to see it in person because it's hard to do it the other way. And perhaps we could do this year's and have a separate evening for our last year's. I think that the people deserve to have their celebration in person. I think by June, we're going to be in a much better position. All will be well.
Well, we're not.
I hate to see it planned and then it will have to be canceled. But
If we had to cancel it, then it could be virtually.
I can't see it going from inside gathering of nothing right now, of no one allowed, to 100 or 200 people allowed. I don't know, but I just can't see it.
Could they be giving out the awards at each school?
So to that question, Trustee Sirwa, yes, I think that is a possibility. You know, there is an option too for somewhat of a hybrid model. I'll give you an example. We have many employees that receive their 5-year award, which is a Bible. You could say, okay, we're gonna, which is a large amount of our population usually. It could be that that's done at the school site, but we're gonna do the retirees and the special award winners virtually. I mean, there are different hybrids as well that we could do.
I like that option. Something personal, you know, for certain awards at the school. And it could still be live streamed, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
And then the retirees, I'm sure that they'll still have something at their school that's done safely, like with their own school community, but at the division level, it could be the virtual event. We could just, it could be planned and done and you know, rather than waiting, like what happened last year, right? Those retirees, they're still waiting. So is that a good compromise? So if there's a way to some awards, like you mentioned, Charlie, at the school level, are handed out at the school level in person, and then for other awards, particularly for the division awards and the retirement awards, we plan a virtual event.
I think, Madam Chair, if the board is willing, we could maybe bring a proposal of that to the next board meeting.
Okay,
And
sounds
then,
good.
You know, with that kind of a format.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, 7.8. It's that time of the year where we talk about Toonies for tuition. So this again started. I guess I'm the only trustee here with the high school, but this started as an opportunity for high school students to pay it forward. So in their high school year, Toonies were collected by the high school students and donated to the tuition fund at the National CCSTA tuition fund. And it has grown. A lot of divisions have taken it on. I have taken on some fundraising for this fund, and it's a very worthy cause. Our division, we offered it to employees as a payroll deduction, and it was very well received for the last 2 years. And I'm just wondering if we want the same invitation to go out again this year. And just a thank you to staff for taking up the effort to support other students, other families, and other provinces that don't have publicly funded Catholic education. Last year, our division was mentioned as a strong contributor at their annual meeting, at CCSTA's annual meeting. So it is a worthy cause. We do get good support from staff, and anybody can be a donator or be off of it. It doesn't matter. It's totally an individual decision, and it's a tax deductible contribution. So CCSTA will send out tax receipts to those who do the donation. So we have the two options. The option for our grade 12 students to make a contribution in their graduation year, and then staff to be part of the monthly donation option. So, and we have our staff to thank for making that happen, our payroll staff a couple of years ago. So are trustees in favor of it, just repeating the same opportunity for staff and for the fund? Trustee Tugwood?
I was just wondering, the tax receipt, does it come from Star Catholic when it's taken off our pay, or does it come
No,
from
I received mine
CCSTA?
separately at the end of the year from CCSTA.
Oh, okay. But I'm in favor of it continuing.
Yeah. Trustee
I'm in
Sirwa?
favor. Yeah.
Okay, you're in favor. Okay, so we're in favor of going forward with that opportunity for staff. Is there any way to include in the letter the amount that was donated by Star Catholic last year, just so that people know that their contribution is making, a big difference?
I think the original invitation out to parents, Madam Chair, was signed off by you, so I think we can make those alterations if you wish to have them.
Okay, sure. Okay, excellent. And trustees with high schools in their ward can reach out to their high school and have that conversation. I have already reached out to Christ the King, so I'm going to their next grad meeting. So, okay. So that'll be on the action sheet then. Okay, so maybe we'll just take a 10-minute break. Oh, sorry, Trustee Tugwood?
I was just going to ask for a 5-minute break, but 10 minutes is good.
Okay, sure. Yeah, so we'll come back at 2:05. Okay, thank you, everybody.